Okay, good morning. We're having some technical issues today at the radio station. So I'm home. This is my den slash office, and we're doing this from home for the time being. So today I'm talking about two films. The first one is called Sicario, Day of the Soldado. It actually came out a few months ago in the States, but it's only coming here now. I mentioned it on the radio a few weeks ago because it was uh, it was supposed to be released here 2 weeks ago, opposite um, A Star Is Born, and the distributor decided to hold back for 2 weeks to have it compete with Bohemian Rhapsody, which also opened yesterday or today. Yeah, they're both opening today. And perhaps a better choice because I've seen A Star Is Born, I've seen Bohemian Rhapsody. Star Is Born's a better film. So we'll see. We'll see if it was a wise choice to hold it back. But if you've seen the first Sicario film, which came out in 2015, an uber macho film, it stars Josh Brolin, from the guy from Deadpool and Deadpool 2, and oh no, he was in Deadpool 2, and The Avengers, and many other films. So he plays a CIA officer, Matt Graver, and he's along with his lethal partner Alejandro Gillick, played by Benicio del Toro, who's also in Avengers Infinity War and Star Wars, strange role for him, and A Perfect Day. He's been also in many, many films. So they're back in this film too. So if you like the first one, you'll probably like this one too. But you don't have to have seen the first one to understand what's going on in this one. It helps, but I think you can get by without having seen the first one. And it's basically this one's not really a sequel. It's just another chapter in the story of this testosterone-fueled tale of a Black Ops unit's war on the Mexican drug cartels. So in this film, and this is a very timely film, Muslim suicide bombers arrive at a Kansas City megastore and they kill more than a dozen shoppers. And yeah, given what's happened this week in America, maybe this is a little bit too sensitive, but here goes. When the U.S. government intelligence reveals that the terrorists are being smuggled into the country by Mexican drug cartels, I honestly think Donald Trump must have watched this film. you know. So Graver is brought in to neutralize this imminent threat by instigating a war with the major drug cartels. So Graver reunites with Alejandro and Steve Forsing, who's played by Jeffrey Donovan, who was in the first Sicario film. He was also the star of the TV show Burn Notice, and a few others. And they head to Mexico City, where the team assassinates a high-profile lawyer from the Matamoros cartel. Okay, I don't know if that's a real name, Matamoros cartel, and kidnaps Isabel, played by Isabella Moner, young actress, and she's going to be seen in the new Mark Wahlberg comedy, if you can call it that, called Instant Family. I saw a clip for it last night. It looks horrible. So she's going to be in that film as well. She's the teenage daughter of the head of the Reyes cartel. So they tried to make it look like the rival cartel abducted the girl in retaliation for the lawyer's execution. So the team is successful in spiriting the girl back out of Mexico and into the U.S., but in their attempt to get her back into Mexico, they run into a little snag. And seeing the potential for huge political fallout, the U.S. Secretary of Defense James Riley, played by Matthew Modine from Full Metal Jacket, he orders Graver to abort the mission and erase all proof of existence, and that includes both the girl and his good friend Alejandro. So that's basically what the story is about. Yeah, this when I hear Trump talking about Arabs coming in or Muslim suicide bombers being amongst the immigrant caravan, I think he must be getting his information from this movie. It's not true. So this movie is directed by Italian director Stefano Sollima. This is his English language film debut. Denis Villeneuve directed the first one, but unfortunately he wasn't available for this one. I forget what project he's working on, but he couldn't do this one. It's a shame because I think he's a great director and he's Canadian. So this film, Sicario, Day of the Soldado. It's a tense drama, but it's not quite as good as the first film. Now, this film is also, it's written by Taylor Sheridan, who writes great screenplays. He did Wind River, he did Hell or High Water, and of course he did the first Sicario film, now this one too. But the trouble is there's so much going on here that story arcs get tossed into the dumper, presumably to keep the film's length to just 2 hours, or I can't remember, it's around 2 hours. So, there's a lot happening, and I mean, this could have been like a 4 hour film, maybe it could have been a mini series. And so they go cut, 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 and it ends up being 2 hours. At no time do we see the two cartels going to war with each other, which is what the whole point of this operation is for. And the logic that if the cartels are busy killing each other, then the terrorists will stop crossing the border, that's not explained, how that works. And then also that snag that I talked about before when they're trying to get the girl back into Mexico, that reveals a humongous plot hole. I won't say what it is, but if you're following the story, you're going, this does not make sense. So if you're and so so to me the story is there's too much story, and what we see just doesn't work. Also, I'm good or bad. If you've seen the first film, it'll come as no surprise that this film is brutally violent, especially during the opening scenes. Unfortunately these days we see a lot of films that are violent. This film as well. This film as well. And I think you should be forewarned that if there are any people in your audience wearing a MAGA hat, they're going to start chanting "Build that wall" when they see this film. This movie seems, as I said, it's right out of Trump's playbook, which, okay, not going to get into it. So now, like the first Sicario film, the women are just props for the man. This is a film by man, about man, for men. So there's only two women this time. There's the young girl who I mentioned before, and there's his boss. Graver has a female boss, Cynthia Ford's been played by Catherine Keener, who was in Get Out. But you know what? They're fodder for the man, really. The little girl, the teenager, she was excellent. I thought she does this sort of tough as nails routine at the beginning, and she does it really well. But unfortunately, she gets declawed far too early, and she's relegated to being an audience substitute as we learn more about Alejandro's backstory, and he's got a good backstory. So, I think there was good potential there to continue, and I get why her character was toned down as things go on, but to me, she became a less interesting character because of that. So that's, again, a negative. But to the film's credit, I think Brolin and Del Toro, they're great here. They keep the film highly watchable, even with all the violence and a little bit of the plot mess, as the body counts pile up, and there's lots of dead bodies. So get ready for that. So, you know what? I'd say if you've already seen the first film, or even if you haven't, I'd say check it out. It's not bad. It's not as good as the first film. It is violent. So that's my take. Sicario, Day of the Soldado. In some places it's called Sicario 2. Here it's just called Sicario, Day of the Soldado. So that's the first film. The second film, big film that's opening today, is Bohemian Rhapsody, which is the story of Freddie Mercury and Queen. And this has been highly anticipated, a biopic. And I would have to say, when I heard they were going to be making this film, I thought, oh, this is either going to be really good or really bad. I don't know how any screenwriter, any actor, any director can capture Freddie's mix of flamboyance, charisma, ambition, creative vision, musical talent. The guy sang 4 octaves, and even his recklessness in just 2 hours. It's a huge task. They signed originally. Sacha Baron Cohen was supposed to play Freddie Mercury. He dropped out because of creative differences. He apparently wanted the film to be darker than it is, and the producers or the studio, they wanted to keep it a little bit lighter. Unfortunately, I think he was right. They were wrong, but So Rami Malek, who people would know him from the TV show Mr. Robot, which I've never seen, but some people like it, some people hate it. But he was also in Short Term 12. That was the film that made Brie Larson famous. He's in that one. So People might have seen him there. To his credit, he puts it all on the line here. In his portrayal of Freddie as this unconventional singing legend, he's got this bucktooth, overbite prosthetic. And I love, after when the credits were rolling, I saw the name of the company that made this. It was called Fangs FX. Great name. You know, what's the name of your company? Fangs FX. You know, it says it all. So, I mean, he really, I don't want to say he did a great job because there's no substitute for Freddie Mercury, but he did a really good job. He really put his heart and soul into this character, into this performance. So, and I think he really saved the film, because I think generally this is not a great film. It's an okay film, but he made it better than what it was. So, I give him a lot of credit. So if you don't know the story about Freddie Mercury, he's the son of Parsi immigrants who came from India via Zanzibar. He was born in Zanzibar and grew up in London. He was a design student in the early 70s in London, and he met Brian May, here played in the film by Gwilym Lee. I don't know who he is, but he was excellent. He even looks like Brian May. And drummer Roger Taylor, played by Ben Hardy. Never seen him before either. And what happened was they were in a band called Smile, and they were playing the university circuit. And their lead singer, bass guitarist, he quit. He got a better offer. He quit. So they were sort of down a very key component of their band. And Freddie comes up to them and says, hire me. And they do. And at the same, according to the movie, at the same time, they also hired bass guitarist John Deacon, played by Joseph Mazzello, who's American, by the way. But in reality, it was a couple months before they hired Deacon, but that's not here nor there. But with Freddie at the front, the band's an immediate hit, but Freddie has bigger plans. He's full of ambition, so he changes the band's name to Queen, and he convinces the others to sell their beat up camper van, their caravan, and I guess you guys call it caravan, and to pay for some studio time so that they can cut a demo reel. And according to the movie, they get a recording contract and their career starts to take off. At the same time, Freddie meets a young woman by the name of Mary Austin, played by Lucy Boynton, who was in Murder on the Orient Express and Sing Street. She's great. She's not great, so great in this movie, but she's great in the other movies. He has eyes, although he has a relationship with her, he has eyes on guys, and he meets at truck stops and backstage at concerts, and it's part of the problem I have with this movie is it never really goes to those places that it needs to go. Like, you see him making eyes at guys and guys making eyes at him, but you never see him with a guy. Well, actually, at one point, at the end of the movie, he does have a boyfriend, but you don't see him in bed with anybody. So, they didn't want to put that in the movie. I think because they wanted to keep the PG-13 rating and not go into the R rating. So Queen is, these four guys at Queen, they're ever trying to refine their musical style. They want to push the boundaries of rock and roll, and they develop the album A Night at the Opera, and that produces these classic songs like You're My Best Friend, Love of My Life, and of course Bohemian Rhapsody. But the boss of their record label didn't want Bohemian Rhapsody to be a single because it's 6 minutes long. He said radio stations will never play a song that's 6 minutes. It's interesting because Stairway to Heaven, I think it's about 5-something minutes. I don't know. So, and that certainly got radio play. So he was really, against Bohemian Rhapsody being a single. But the guys said, no, this is going to be our first single. We're really, we're stuck on this. And what Freddie did is he went to Capital FM and he spoke to his friend DJ Kenny Everett, and Kenny gladly played it. And with that, the song just took off in popularity. Everybody was listening to it, and their place in rock and roll history is assured. Now, in a bit of wink casting, that record company exec in the movie who tells them this song will never be successful is played by Mike Myers, who does this sort of skinny fat bastard. He's in a lot of prosthetics. He's got red hair, red body hair, and he does, of course, his trademark Scottish accent, sort of like the ogre from Shrek, and or a fat bastard, but he's not so fat. And but it's a real wink wink bit of casting because Myers's film, Wayne's World, the showpiece part of that film was Bohemian Rhapsody, where him and Garth are, they're headbanging in the car. And of course, I think because of that, when anybody goes on a road trip, you just have to sing Bohemian Rhapsody and do that. I know I have. So as the band's success grows, the media's fascination with Freddie's sort of hedonistic gay lifestyle, it overshadows the work of the band and its other members. And eventually the band breaks up. Freddie decides to leave as a solo career, but when Live Aid comes, the group decides to get back together. Freddie goes back to them, and because they realize they were better together than they were apart, as are a lot of bands that break up. They're better together than they are apart. So they get back together, they do Live Aid, and they give this performance of a lifetime at the concert of a lifetime. And that's really the showpiece of the film, is their performance at Live Aid at Wembley Stadium, 1985. And by the way, if you haven't seen the live thing, you can look at it on YouTube. I watched it again the other day. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. So now about the film. The film moves at a good pace, but as I said, it doesn't break any new ground. It's very by the numbers, very linear. Starts off when he's young, gets to be, obviously we know what happens at the end. If you don't know, look it up. So, I didn't like that. It was a very traditional structure to the screenplay. And it's got some very heavy-handed dialogue. They say things that we're supposed to go, oh, wow, that's so prescient. Give me a break. Don't put that crap in there. So, and as I said, it plays it very safe, depicting Freddie's lifestyle. I think, as I said, we never see him in bed with a man. The most we see is that he's kissing a guy. Big deal. It's 2018. Big deal. In terms of his drug use, and look, he was into drugs. We see him drink, alcohol with one pill. That's the extent of his drug use. Or at one point there we see some white powder on table, obviously cocaine, or we're meant to think it's cocaine, and we don't see him snort it again because that would change the rating of the film. So I was disappointed with that, because the reality of the situation is he was a regular at gay bars, wild parties on both sides of the Atlantic in the 70s and the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and I felt, they had one scene where he's throwing a party, the sort of rather hedonistic party, and that was supposed to represent this whole part of his hedonistic lifestyle. It didn't work for me. This film needed to be higher and it needed to be lower. It was right in the middle the whole time, and that was, to me, that was disappointing. And also, if you were to watch the Live Aid performance, it's very interesting. In the film, they recreate this Live Aid performance almost second for second. I mean, they cut out a couple songs, but the songs that they do play, it's almost second for second to the real thing. But if you watch the movie and you watch the real performance on YouTube, there's no comparison. Freddie was one of a kind, and Queen are one of a kind. There's so much energy there, and although Rami Malek's very busy going like this the whole time, Deo, Deo, it was pale in comparison. You'd like to think somebody like Adam Lambert, who unfortunately doesn't look like Freddie, has got a million times more energy on stage. And we were talking about this last night, that it might have been difficult for Rami Malek, because you have Freddie Mercury, who loved the audience, and he's playing to 100,000 people live, and at 1.5 billion people on TV, and he loved the audience. He was really in his element when he was performing, and you see that connection that he had to the audience. In the movie, Rami Malek is basically playing to CGI, so it's hard. It's got to be hard to create that kind of, to get yourself so excited, so wrapped up. So okay, you know what? I'll cut him a bit of slack for that. So, but you know what? All in all, I'd say go see Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a pretty good film. It's, you know what, I thought it might have been awful. I thought it was, I actually thought it was really going to be awful. And you know what, it's pretty good. He's, as I said, he's the best part of the film, even though he's got this, weird prosthetic business going on. The music is wonderful. Okay, the music is the best part of the film. Let me change that. The music is the best part of the film. He's the second best part of the film. Um, but as far as biopics go, and as far as movies that are out these days that have a musical theme to them, it's not the best. But you know what? Go see it. You'll probably enjoy it. And there's a couple of documentaries, and one of them I saw on YouTube just the other day about Freddie. Um, Not a great documentary. It's all talking heads, but it's interesting because you learn more about him. I just hope one day somebody does this like definitive documentary about him because that shows him for all his warts and whatnot. I think that it'd be nice to see that. This just isn't it. The other thing I was thinking of as I watch this film, there's going to be an Elton John biopic next May called Rocket Man, and I thought, ooh, and let's see how that one works out. I don't think that one's going to, it doesn't bode well. Let's just put it that way. So that's it. Those are the two big films opening today. I'd say check both of them out. They're both good films. They're not great films. They're entertaining films. One's extremely violent. One's got some fabulous music. Go check it out. I don't know what's happening next week. Maybe I'll be in the studio. Maybe I'll be here. Maybe we'll be on Skype. I don't know what's happening. So stay tuned. See ya.